and I am Jesse Carstairs. So, I am a Christian husband, father, archery hunter, entrepreneur, food snob, uh, rancher, all the above. And on this podcast, I'm going to be talking about what it is to be a man in 2023, not from society's standpoint, but what it means to be a man from a Marcus Aurelius standpoint, what it means to be a man from all throughout history, beginning all the way from tribes, beginning of the time, hunter-gatherer, taking care of family, what it looked like to be a man in 1776, and how we can apply those same things today. I'm going to talk about how to be a father, because so many people in our generation, I think we were raised by fathers who weren't shown by possibly their fathers what it is to be a man. I mean, you could start off with any biological male that has he, him in their pronouns. It's part of the problem. So I just want to connect with you guys, tell you a little bit about myself, my background, what we're going to do, because this is just the intro episode. I grew up playing sports. I had a father who literally worked his ass off. In the course of 30 years, he called out of work 2 times in those 30 years. Once was for food poisoning because he was throwing up everywhere and went back to work the next day. The other one was because on a Sunday he broke all the ribs on one side and went to the hospital on a Monday. Tuesday, he was back at work. So I had a dad that demonstrated hard work for sure. Very lucky in that aspect. Grew up playing sports, everything from racing motocross, playing football, basketball, golf. I skied competitively. I wrestled. My parents had me boxing at 8 years old. Not saying I was any good, but just things that I participated in. Went to college, and in college dropped out, started a business, and with that business merged with another company where we were bringing Chinese athletes to the United States, and we had an offer to be bought out by Rock Nation, which was pretty cool. I ended up getting my master's degree in business through that endeavor. Not through any university, but through experience. 2011, I invested in Bitcoin when it was $87. Don't get me wrong, I'm not rich at all. Probably the brokest person you know. But you're going to watch my journey to unbroke, to acquire wealth is going to be part of this. Part of this journey that you're going to be watching through the Jesse Carstairs show. And then over the time, started another business, a digital media company where the former senior vice president of HBO contacted me, flew out to where I'm from, was curious of what I was doing because he heard through the grapevines about what I was trying to put together, and we formed a deal together, which really vouched for what I was trying to do, being that he sought me out. And then 2019, 2020 happened. We didn't get the 10 million bucks that we were trying to raise, which is fine, wasn't meant to be. And then there was COVID. COVID happened. And from the very beginning, I was a very anti-mask, anti-lockdown. If I was the governor of any state, I would have never locked down for a second. I have screenshots from very early 2020 saying, don't fall for the fear and control. Do not wear a mask. We shouldn't be closing down our shops. I think 33 million small businesses went out of business across the United States, which is crazy. 1/3 or 75% of all restaurants just in LA went out of business and never returned. I thought it was absolute insanity. I am a father, 2 boys who are freaking awesome. I'm teaching them not to be harmless, but to be dangerous and keep it under control and use it for the benefit of their goals, their dreams, use it for the benefit of their family. One of the things that you're going to understand is I really don't care what other people think because nobody else is going to help me accomplish my dreams or goals or pay for my bills, buy me my mansion, buy me a supercar, private jet. So why should I care what anybody thinks? But I do want to be hosting this podcast so other people can get an insight on what it is to be a man these days, what it is to be a father in 2023 when there's a lot of weird shit going on. Yeah, so we're just going to be getting started and going from there. I mean, I can even go a little bit more into, my upbringing. Like I said, I came from a father who didn't call out. I came from a father who didn't even graduate high school, grew up, you could say, in subsidized housing. My father, I could even back up even before that. My biological father fucking killed himself. Good old when I wasn't even 2 years old. I was maybe 18 months, and then my father, who is my father who raised me, he was around since I was 3. So that guy has definitely been a demonstration in my life. Had sisters. He was very, very loving, but he was someone who fucking did not want to lie to, um, did not want to fuck with, but gave you the ultimate freedom as long as you were truthful. And again, didn't go to high school, dropped out of like its sophomore year, ended up getting a GED, ended up going to working for a company, then started a company. One of the smartest people I know is my father. The reason I even invested in any Bitcoin was because of him in 2011 when it was $87. Bought into silver when it was like $8, gold when it was, I don't know, $800, seven something, 700 something bucks. But I mostly because of him. That was it. He was able to understand the technology of Bitcoin, not necessarily Bitcoin, but the blockchain technology and how it made the technology of Visa and credit cards pretty ancient and archaic. Then, he was not that sports dad who was trying to live vicariously through me and watch me succeed in sports. He really didn't ever care about sports at all. He didn't understand the concept of a bunch of people sitting around on the couch cheering on people and their success. He was more about, well, why don't you just go out and achieve your own success versus wearing someone else's name on a jersey. Why don't you go out there and wear your own name on the back of your own jersey mentality? And I really believe in that mentality, and I think it's kind of more and more we've gotten away from an entrepreneurial state as a country and as a culture. Maybe with social media, you see a little bit more entrepreneurship because of the likes of Gary V's out there, Ed Milet's, Ryan Pineda's, Andy Frisella's, pushing more entrepreneurial voices, entrepreneurial things. So, yeah, like I said, grew up doing sports, got jacked up doing sports, racing motocross, fucking up my shoulder, wrestling, tearing labrums, etc. So each episode, I'm going to be going over certain topics that pertain to all really the questions that I think people aren't willing to ask. The fathers, the young men that aren't really willing to ask people, but they're living in this quiet desperation in this day and age of what to do when it comes to just different frustrations of being a man in 2023, whether it's societal expectations, what's a healthy relationship, career success, failure in personal relationships, mental health challenges, um, or even being a father. How do you balance work and family? Quality time spending with your children. What does that look like? What does a child's success look like? Fears of not being a good parent. Um, there's so many little parenting challenges. I mean, I had an Instagram video get about 600,000 views a month ago, all because I talked about how someone came over to our house and asked why my kids sit down and eat their entire meal. And all I did is point out that we don't let them graze, we don't let them eat snacks. They eat at about 9 o'clock. They have a meal at 12 o'clock. They have a meal at 3, and then they have dinner about 6. So they have 4 structured meals where everybody sits down and they eat. And if your kid is being a pain in the ass at the dinner table and says they're not hungry, it's probably because you've been letting them eat junk food all day. So there was about 500 comments on that, and comments, questions, and I'm probably going to at one point go through all the valid questions on there or concerns and address a number of the excuses, because we all want to make excuses, whether it's our personal life, whether it's our parenting, and oh, my kid's different. It's like your fucking kid's not different unless they're literally retarded. And excuses that we make ourselves of why we're not in shape. It's 2023. There's access to so much information on why you should be in the best shape of your life, regardless of what age you're in. You should be making time. You should be demonstrating what it is to be a man to your children. You shouldn't be embarrassed to take your shirt off. You look like, this goes for men and women. If you look disgusting naked, we got a problem. It's 2023. We should be able to handle those things and look up the information that is going to allow you to have the body that you feel extremely comfortable in and confident in. And that for all the men out there, when you take off your shirt, you can say, this is the example that I want to set for all my kids of this is the kind of shape that they should be in. So not you being 50, 60 pounds overweight when you were skinny as a rail in high school, and then you got an 8 and a 10-year-old that are just fat little shits, eat McDonald's and chicken nuggets. Don't poison your body. Don't poison your kid's body. We all got one body to live in this life, so we shouldn't be fucking it up. Now, I don't know, maybe I'm body shaming. I probably am, if I'm being honest, because we should be taking care of ourselves. It's not that hard. Being fat is an entirely new concept to the human body. Now you might be like, what are you talking about? In fucking 1600, King Billy Bob was fat as a cow in England. And it's like, yeah, he may have been. But the concept of being fat is extremely new. If you even go back to the end of the Unger Dryas, what was that, 15,000 years ago? And just 5,500 years ago, it's still fairly new. Or if you take since the beginning of time of humans, however many hundreds of thousands of years you want to say that is. Being fat is very new to the human body, which is why it's so easy. It's why people get addicted to eating. We're not supposed to be stuffing our face. We all should have abs. So why don't we have abs? Kids with, and then people with children who are little shits. You only have a short amount of time to program those children to be socially acceptable, liked by other parents. So between 2 and 4, maybe 5, you got to make sure that they are liked by other parents. Your job is not to hover over them and tell them how to interact with other kids. Your job is to lead them to where they're sociably liked by other adults. And you will have done a good job. If your kid is trying to defy all rules at 5, 6, 7, 8, they're probably likely going to end up in prison. Just telling you. Now, you might think your kid defies rules and he's probably not that bad of a kid. Or you might think your kid defies rules just because of how he is, but he'll end up being fine. Unless he actually makes the choice to change at some point in his life. By the time they're 5 and 6, it's about done. That window is pretty much closed on how they are going to end up when they're older and at 18. And we give as parents, we don't give our kids enough credit for how intelligent they are. So we feel like we need to do everything for them. We think we need to tell them that they're cold when they're 2, 3, 4, and 5. So they have to put a jacket on. Let them fucking learn. We tell them, oh, I don't give my kid any utensils to learn how to eat like a normal human. I have them eat with their hands like a darn animal because it's easier than me having to teach them. And whenever they're ready, they're ready. It's like, no, you can teach a 2-year-old how to use a spoon and a fork. If you just put the time in for a little bit, they'll catch right on. Or the fact that 4-year-olds are having their parents still put their slip-on shoes on for them. It's like, are you kidding me? They're freaking 4. A 4-year-old should be making his own snacks or lunches. Not necessarily snacks, but if he wants a sandwich, your 4-year-old should be able to make a freaking sandwich. You guys might think this is a little harsh, but it's the reality. If we just go back to the time of Marcus Aurelius, kids were doing shit. If you just go back at certain parts of this country 100 years ago, a lot of kids were freaking had to pull their weight. There was a reason why there was an unwritten rule in the United States among Native Americans before white people got here, that when you went to war against another tribe, you left all the babies and toddlers to die because you didn't want to take care of them. But if you had a 5 or 6 or 7-year-old who could walk and carry his own shit, you would keep them. You would bring them into your tribe because that 6-year-old could carry his own weight. He could fend for himself amongst the rest of the tribe. But if you had a 2-year-old, they weren't gonna make their own sandwich. So my point is, we need to be giving kids more responsibilities. And again, those parents who put fucking helmets on their kid on a Strider that they also have a handle on, like if it's a grocery cart, it reminds me of when I was a kid and you would joke that someone needed to wear a helmet because they were dumb. You have a helmet on a kid that's on a tricycle that also has a grocery cart handle. This blows my mind. I never wore a helmet on a bicycle when I was a kid. I didn't remember ever seeing another human with a helmet on a bicycle when we were kids. And now you got kids on Striders wearing full-on motorcycle helmets. And it's like, man, we are getting soft. Not that we don't need to protect our heads, but the fact that a kid can't go and ride his bike on the sidewalk around the block without a helmet blows my mind. Blows my mind. Our kids should be doing dangerous things while being focused. You know, we got to stop telling kids to be fucking careful. Do not tell your kid ever to be careful. Just tell them that, hey, stay focused, bud. Stay focused. The programming of telling a kid to be careful, you are literally setting them up for failure in life because they're not going to want to try anything. They're going to want to have this concept of, oh, I got to be careful. I got to be careful. They're going to be that tortoise who just sucks their head right into their shell. Nope, can't do anything because you're implying that everything is dangerous out there. No, they should be doing dangerous things. You do want to allow your kids to have a freaking pocket knife at 2.5, 2, because they're not strong enough to hurt themselves. And then the second the kid plays with a knife for the first time at 9, fucking chops his finger off and is freaking out. You give a 2-year-old a knife and he cuts his finger, he doesn't even know that that's actually a negative thing. And he's looking at it and wondering why there's blood coming out of his finger. And maybe his body is sending a signal to his head that says it doesn't feel good, because that's all when something hurt is our brain being aware that there's something going on this side of our body, and they're like, okay, there's blood, maybe I don't want to do it again. So then they stopped doing this, and they learn how to properly use a knife. You might be asking, yeah, I gave my oldest son, when he was about 2.5 years old, a pocket knife. And I remember watching him in the stroller, staring at his finger as it's just bleeding, and him not knowing why it was bleeding, didn't even know what blood was, did not cry, make a peep. And my wife's son was like, oh, whoa, what happened? And she noticed that he was cool. So then she instantly went to cool, like, oh, scratch your finger a little bit. Let me put a little tissue on that. Wipe it off. Just hold some pressure on it. You're good. And then he was just kind of stunned. And you know what? Both of my boys are freaking great with knives. We need to get back to every kid having a pocket knife, going to school, cutting their apple, instead of us living in a society where kid has a knife at school, he gets tackled, he gets tased, people want to call the cops, this kid has a dangerous weapon. It's like, no, it's just a pocket knife. Why can't we go back to the days where we had shotguns in the back of our trucks and would go shoot in the woods during lunchtime? Not that everyone has access to a school that has some woods or the desert behind it, but my point is we're giving up our freedom in the name of security. And Benjamin Franklin said those who are willing to give up their freedom for security deserve neither. So let's just think about that. There's going to be all these little topics that I'm little touching on here and there. I'm going to go into deep detail on a number of these things. And if you guys think that kids don't need structured meals, it's like, okay, well, I'll cite a number of studies that say, hey, your kid is less likely to be obese if they actually have structured meals. Having that structured eating system is far better for their cognitive development. Rough and tumble play. Letting your kids just fucking wrestle with one another and figuring it out themselves, better for their cognitive development. Letting your 5-year-old walk around the block on his own without you, which people would probably freak out these days about, is better for his mental health and cognitive development. We need to stop suffocating our kids, theoretically, with our parenting style, and let them be free. Let them learn. Let them go and climb the trees. Let them jump a fence to go get their ball that they took over, as long as they're not getting eaten by their dog. Let your kid go ride his bike around the block at 5 years old by himself. Let them walk home from school. We put this fear and control out there that's no different than what the government was doing to us during the flu season of 2020, 2021. So again, just a tiny little splash of an intro. Some things I want to touch on that I'm going to be talking about in the future about being a man in 2023 and the future. When it comes to dating, when you're a man and it comes to dating, you gotta be picky in a way, but you gotta figure out, I guess, what it is that you guys want in life. Too many guys out there are raised, and the young men out there, and they're a bunch of fucking pussies, and they want these pronouns of he, hims, but then they also want to be fuckboys and just sleep around with as many women as possible, but they don't actually have any true respect for women because they also want to play freaking women's sports as a biological male. And we have a society that, I saw a MMA fighter, Sean O'Malley, talking about how because he's the breadwinner and supplies his girlfriend, who he has a child with, the lifestyle, that he should be able to get some chicks on the side. And it's like, that's toxic. The fact that you think that you deserve to get chicks on the side because you pay for her stuff, completely disagree with. You should be paying for her stuff if you have a child with her and if you guys are married. And too many guys these days want their spouse to be working. You should not be having your spouse work. They should be the stay-at-home mom and the caretaker of your home and your children. But you're like, but if she's working, we can buy a boat. It's like, fuck your boat. You work harder and then you can buy the boat and let her stay home with the kids. Just a number of things like that. Like, one, get married young. You might think it's crazy and you want to have all this fun. Get married young. You're more likely to have a longer lasting marriage. Don't move in before you're married, because you're more likely to have a divorce if you guys live together prior to getting married. Just a handful of little things like this that I'm going to be going over. So stay tuned, and I'm going to be putting out one every single week. Every week, dropping an episode. So stay tuned to the Jesse Carstairs Show.